Hello and good morning, everybody. I'm filming this on St. Patrick's Day. Got my green shirt on, so don't pinch me through the camera. And we are ready to get rolling, making the most of this situation. You see my desktop, all too familiar. It's just in the comfort of your own home. All right, so intro right now to chapter 4 from the beginning. So, as you might remember, I have put a question with every chapter. And this chapter deals with the reality that we all fall, that we all come up short in doing what is right or wrong. And so a real part of morality is how to deal with that. And so title of chapter 4 is What Happens When We Fall? Sin and Mercy. It's gonna start off pretty ugly and negative, but we're gonna end on a glorious note as we get closer and closer to Easter. Which, by the way, if you haven't heard, the Bishop of Lafayette has made it so that there are no more masses. So you are not able to go to Mass until Easter Monday at the earliest. And even then, we'll have to wait and see. So if you haven't heard, the Bishop has canceled Masses simply to keep people away from each other so we can get past this time all the quicker. So but you should, of course, do your best to mimic a mass at home. Read the readings, the daily readings, say some prayers, do some meditation, make a spiritual communion, which is to ask Jesus to come into your heart even though you can't receive the Eucharist. All right, here we go. That was my personal sound effects. Chapter 4 is outlined. You don't need to write this down, but just so you know where we're going, these are the 11 online classes that I have planned for our 4 weeks on, and it could be more, but this is not planned for 4 weeks. We're going to start with the nature of sin. Today, we're going to talk about certain names for sin in the Bible. We're going to do a little jury duty exercise. So I'm going to let you judge tomorrow what's a sin and what's not a sin. And we're going to try to discuss and then we're going to classify sins. We're going to move into the capital sins, go into those a little bit deeper to recognize the origin of our sins. We're going to talk about our conscience bugging us about sins, and of course, how to get those sins gone and how to forgive others. So that's the outline if you're interested. All right, lesson 1 is the nature of sin. And as you just saw, there's 3 sections of this. We're going to do section 1. This is the best place for me to post your homework. Page 1 of the research paper is due to turnitin.com by March 25th. That's next Wednesday, 7:30 a.m. Just one page of writing. That's the only thing you're going to have to do other than taking notes, paying attention, and doing bell ringers and ed puzzles during this class session. All right. So March 25th, next Wednesday. All right, here we go with the nature of sin. What is sin? Is the topic of conversation today. And what do I mean by this? I mean, we're just gonna really examine if we're gonna understand what's a sin and what's not a sin. What makes something a sin? It's not because the church says so, but it's because there's something in the action of the sin that makes it that way. What can we put into the category? What do we put in the basket of a sin? Um, And there's a lot of different ways to describe sin. So what I'm going to give you is the top 3 ways the Bible describes sin. The Bible has many different names for sin. A lot of you know that there's many different names for love. There's many different names for sin. Um, so to get you primed for them, I want you to go to Socrative right now, log into your regular classroom on Socrative using the same old number you've been using all year long, and I want you to answer this bell ringer. You can, of course, search for this Bible passage online, or you can whip out that family Bible. It might have some dust on it. It might be a good time to use a hard copy of the Bible at home. So that is your assignment for today. 2 Samuel chapter 12, 7 to 13. The prophet Nathan is talking to King David. I want you to figure out what he did. and what Nathan is letting him know he knows that he did, and what is David's verbal response. Pause this video right now, find the Bible verse, and answer it on Socrates. Okay, so now that you're back, we can move on. Hopefully you submitted that. I am going to be taking attendance daily from Socrates. So if you don't do Socrates, you don't get attendance, and it can impact your grade. We're going to have to grade in any way we can. So maybe your attendance and your online activities will count for a little bit more than normal during this fourth quarter. So make sure you're doing this whenever I tell you to. All right. So back to the Old Testament news for sin. David's response is, I have sinned. And the Greek word for that in the Bible is hata. Hata, as you see spelled on the slide right here, is the word David uses to describe his actions. The word hata means to miss the mark, or I'm missing the mark, So while David says, yeah, I've sinned, what David is saying on a more literal level is, I've missed the mark. God gave me all this. God blessed me so much. And this is what I did with it. I can't believe it. I totally missed the point of why I'm king. I've totally missed the point of how God wanted me to be king, because God certainly appointed me king. I've missed the mark. So, section 1, what is sin? It's missing the mark. It's doing an action that is not in line with your end goal. We ourselves, like David, go off in the wrong direction in life, thus we sin. When we sin, we cheat. We cheat in class, whatever sin it might be. Well, cheating is not growing in knowledge, not effectively, not the way you're supposed to be, not the deepest way. So every time you cheat, you're missing the mark of your life, which is to grow in truth. You're missing the mark. You can name any sin in the book. Having sex with your boyfriend, girlfriend before you get married, you're missing the mark. You're not loving right. You're not going to be able to love better in the future. You're missing the mark. So you can go up and down the list of sins. Sin is described in the Old Testament first off as missing the mark. That's hata. Now we're going to move on to term number 2, which is pesha. Pesha implies rebellion. Okay, so when we sin, we rebel. We rebel against what? Not what, but who? We're rebelling against God. This term was used commonly in the Old Testament to describe how the Israelites continually turned away from the true God to worship other gods. When we pasha, we deliberately turn away from God. And so what is sin? But it's simply telling God, I'm not interested. Some of y'all might remember me telling you the story about how I was flipping burgers in high school with another high school dude who was planning to go out that night and kind of take advantage of a girl. And I told him, that's wrong. He says, yeah, I know it's wrong, but I'm going to do it anyways. What is that? It's obviously a sin, but it's just a sin of rebellion. I know it's wrong. I just don't care. How do you know it's a sin? Because you're rebelling against your true good and purpose in life. Pesha, rebellion. What is sin? Missing the mark. It's rebelling against the good and the goal of life. And number 3, Awang. Awang implies guilt or iniquity. So this third and last description of sin in the Bible implies the punishment and consequence of sin, namely a loss of righteousness. And so once you have Awang, you are no longer clean, you're no longer upright, you're no longer in good standing. You have wounded your status, your relationship. So you see that just in these 3 terms, we get 3 different angles on what is sin. They're all compatible. But to understand what is it a sin, what makes something a sin is simply that, to be out of line with God. All right. So moving on, wrapping up this first section, you see a picture of I think these are the 7 capital sins, which we will cover later on in the chapter. But what is sin? To wrap up this introduction, sin is an offense against reason. Sin is an offense against truth and right conscience. This is all from the Catechism. It is a failure in genuine love for God and neighbor caused by a perverse attachment to certain goods. So, what mark are we missing? We're missing love. Whenever you sin, you do not love. I'm going to try to draw. Okay, we're going to have some fun with this. Well, I am. I don't know if you are. Um, sin. Ooh, that's a rough S. But that's okay because I'm drawing sin. Sin equal sign is not love. See, when I do this really slow, it's going to help you remember it. Um, Whenever you sin, you're not loving. We're going to talk about what love is next chapter. But sin is not love. It's a failure to love God. It's a failure to love your neighbor. Oh, but I'm doing this sin all by myself, and it's something that's just for me. Well, that too hurts God. Oh, it doesn't hurt anybody else though. Well, how do you know? How do you know the long term effects of that sin? You're certainly not loving yourself, and if you're not loving yourself right and living right, and you're sinning against God, if you got those two factors, well, how's that not going to hurt everybody else you meet in life? Not in dramatic fashion, but you see how um, to fail to love God, yourself, and neighbor is to fail to love all three. So, what is sin but a failure in genuine love for God? And it's caused by perverse attachment. Going back to the dude I was flipping burgers with, perverse attachment to, we'll say, sexual pleasure. He put sexual pleasure in front of God, in front of the girl, and in front of his true good. He wants that way too much. Not a bad thing to want. It's a natural thing to want, but you want it too badly. And when you put that as number one, when you put level 1 happiness as your level 4 or 5 happiness, that's sin. That's exactly what it is. So all sins are caused by a perverse attachment. And so that's, once again, as I've said this before, Lent is a time to check those attachments. You get hangry all the time, well, you got to check your appetite. You got to put your soul in control. That kind of rhymes. I'll make bumper stickers, put soul in control. Write a rap song or something, make $1,000,000. It wounds the nature of man and injures human solidarity. It has been defined as an utterance, a deed, or a desire contrary to the eternal law. And we are going to complete today's lesson by sending y'all to Edpuzzle. And you might have seen I posted on Classroom. You might be able to find a link on Google Classroom. But Father Michael Schmitz is going to go a little bit deeper and a little bit better than I can into the nature of sin, why we sin, and the struggle that it is to turn away from sin. And so, Father Mike Schmidt's wisdom coming at you on Edpuzzle. Make sure you answer all 3 or 4 questions for full credit. Once again, this is how you're going to make grades while sitting at home on your bed, on your couch, on your rocking chair. All right. That closes a very simple, short, and sweet lesson 1, section 1. Tomorrow, we're going to do more interactive stuff as best as I can, and I'm going to give you exercises to judge if such and such scenario would miss the mark. Would it be a rebellion against God, or would it put guilt upon us? You're going to judge what is a sin and what is not tomorrow. From Roe Ridge, Louisiana, I am Mr. John Paoletti from Turner's Catholic High School. God bless.